And I think that's a thing that is instilled in them, that if you're not in constant fear mode, you're not living in
threat,
your life is not under threat, then there should be nothing wrong. And I think that's a psychological effect of that. And also, growing up, like understanding your identity and your confidence and your image.
I'd like to interrupt you there.
Yes.
I'd like to just point out that we're not fighting against apartheid, but we are fighting a different kind of battle. We're fighting a battle against self-esteem and self-image within society today and within social media. I mean, how many times a day are we told that we're not good enough and we're not perfect? Not outright, but subliminally, through images, through movies, through songs. How many times are we told that we need to depend on somebody else for our self-worth?
Exactly.
So we're not really fighting for our lives every single day, but we're fighting for our self-worth and fighting to keep it in our own hands and not let it depend on anybody else.
I think it's more like an internal life battle than physically.
Yeah. It's more mental than it is physical.
It's not fighting the external world, it's just fighting yourself in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
And your self-perception, your self-image. And I know that a lot of factors influence this, but I know that within my culture, within Black people, it was greatly affected by apartheid and that whole racist mind state that's very difficult to actually get out of, and it exists in every side. Like every kind of race has racism. I know I can find racism in me the same way I can find it in everyone.
I'd like
acknowledge that.
to bring
Exactly.
a little bit of attention to what I call the colored crisis, because especially it has to do with the aftermath of apartheid and how colored people identify. Because during apartheid, they were seen as nobody, nothing. You're not Black enough to be Black, and you're not white enough to be white. You're half. You're half of everything. You're in between. And telling somebody that has an effect on who they are, and in my opinion, colored doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. You either identify as African or Black. I don't identify as white. I don't identify as colored. I identify myself as African because I am of African descent.
South Africans.
But just African in general, because I am on the African continent.
Exactly.
And I am exposed to all these kind of different cultures and ways of life.
That's a difficult thing for me, like as a white African, to be like, I'm an African, and I am an African. I'm a white African, but I'm an African. And I feel like there's a stigma around that as well. It's hard to own that identity
because African is seen as something that's less than.
Yeah, and it's seen as something that you have to have dark skin to be. And it's also seen as like, oh, my ancestors stole that identity, so I have no right to have it. And it's like, I didn't do that, guys. I just pitched up here and I'm like, been trying to have a good time.
You're the result.
Like I didn't ask for this. And that's the whole thing of this this rainbow nation ideology that we're force-fed to just jump into it, guys. Let's not even fix our psychological situation or how we've been brought up and how we understand people because of our parents and those generations. But I think I found the most beautiful thing was, for me, growing up in integrated schools and realizing that, oh, snap, we're all exactly the same. And trying to tell that to, the older generations who were force-fed the apartheid ideology where, no, this is the hierarchy, this is who you are, this is, that has a, mental effect.
It's ingrained.
And it's ingrained.
It's there. And it's blasphemy to go against it.
Yeah.
Because it's so deep
and it's
within the mind. That people, it's like going against your religion. If you were brought up as a Christian and all of a sudden someone brings up Buddhism, you don't want to hear it. Because it's like blasphemy. And that's what it's like for the older generation to sometimes understand.
Yeah, because of they only understand the experience. And it's like our experience is so different, and when we look at ourselves as a generation, we're all South Africans. And yeah, we were force-fed the ideology, but we need to find a way to have it live in our minds enough for the next generation. We just have to wait and see and do things that...
Be the example.
You'd be the example, because I'm not going to lie, it's not that I've given up on fixing the older generation. I just know that what they know is what they know, and if they're not open to... I think I've said this.
They also have the responsibility to educate themselves and to change their own minds.
Yes, but
it's not up to us.
Yeah, but we can just live.
But it is our responsibility to educate the younger generation
through living it. But psychological effects of apartheid affect all races also, and if we're just aware of that, then I think things can change for the better.
It makes understandings much simpler.
Yeah.
I think that's important, because I mean, we obviously, as the kind of people that we are in this room, we like to talk like that's not a thing anymore, but like the racial tension that's still alive in this country today, it's insane. Like, I've had friends come from overseas and feel it. It's like, whoa, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. How do you guys live like this? You know, and we're just living in the aftermath. You know, so it's obviously deeply ingrained and rooted into, especially the older people, but that doesn't mean it doesn't filter through into the younger people.
Exactly.
And we have to acknowledge that.
It's a reality.
We have to acknowledge that. You know, and within ourselves, like what you were saying about like the bits of racism within ourselves, and it comes from the indoctrination and the experiences and the propaganda and all the things, you know. You have to acknowledge that, because if you don't acknowledge it, you're not going to change it. It's the same with anything, same with depression, same with self-education. If you don't acknowledge to yourself, there's something not right here, or I am not educated enough, or maybe I actually don't know everything. You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to change, you're not going to grow. And it's exactly that. You have to acknowledge it to diffuse it.
I think a very interesting comparison is what you mentioned, Shay, is comparing the societal structure here to a religion. Because religions have this kind of old stereotype where if you do not conform to this ideal, you are punished, right? And it's like you guys have been saying, it's integrated. It's like we've all experienced different perspectives, but we've all been part of the same history in essence. And even the problem is, like, people don't want to change very often, you know, and because
we're happy in our little cesspool.
That's the thing. We like our circle, and it's
people want echo chambers usually, and that's a big problem.
It's
cult vibes.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. And you know, even it doesn't matter how hard you try to be different from your family. Some essence of them will always bleed through. You know, I see people, good people, who are affected by this and end up with like these racist tendencies that are so against who they naturally are, but it's the past that affects them. And it doesn't matter, you know, you are affected by it, whether you want to be or not. And the only way to effectively get rid of that on the larger scale is to create a new present society where that's not the case, right?
Exactly.
But the problem with that is individuals need to change one at a time. And how do we can't convince them. How do people convince themselves that they want to change? How do we instigate that?
For me, it comes to talking about the issues and breaking them down step by step. Like, if you have a prejudiced opinion about somebody, ask yourself, where does it come from?
But getting people to do that in the first place is the thing.
That is true.
Because if you're like, no, these are my ideas and that's just how it is. That's just how it is. You know, when you get that willful ignorance, you ain't breaking that until someone says, okay, maybe I am ignorant, maybe I should acknowledge that.
I think we need to encourage people to question themselves.
Definitely, and I think also by being an example. Because I've personally found, like in my life, as being someone who is more, I come from Afrikaans culture, and that is very conservative. It's also a very conservative African culture, you know, and it's as a queer person, as someone who's always been called a weirdo and what, to just be myself has, I've had a lot of people come up to me privately or message me or something and say, thank you for just being you, because you made me feel like I can be me. You know, basically the gist of it. Which is incredible. And it's sort of like, if we're all doing that authentically and using ourselves as the examples, and we affect locally, you know, because you have to change the entire world, you change your own world. You know? Because if we're all doing that, it overlaps our worlds overlap, and it becomes one big thing.
And
you start creating a chain reaction. You know?
Attract like energies.
Exactly.
So if you're actually trying to make the change actively, you will be the change and attract change and that change reaction.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. I mean, it's a domino effect, and then. I mean, it's a process.
It's a process.
It could be something as simple as a hashtag or a conversation.
That's something that people don't understand, is that it is a process, and it's something you have to work on. It doesn't happen like this. It doesn't happen in an instant. The choice you can make in an instant, and once you've made the choice, then you can walk down that path.
Yes.
But until you make the choice, it's not just going to happen.
Absolutely.
An ideal cannot happen overnight, but every step of progress needs to be acknowledged.
Yes.
I truly believe in those words.
Absolutely.
And I also believe that we have an insane platform of social media.
Yeah.
And I know that talking about these serious topics can spawn into other things where people are just... We've tried to have those conversations online, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but then you get a broader perspective of how people are truly feeling.
Most of them don't.
Yeah,
The
mostly they don't.
trolls.
Yeah,